have some good news, ladies and gentlemen. Activist and organizer Chris Smalls is back home in the United States, and he got here safely. Let's go ahead and get into the story, ladies and gentlemen. We got to talk about real heroes. We got to talk about the people that we should give recognition to, and not these politicians. So it was Apheni who made the announcement that Chris Smalls was coming through. She said, updated flyer, Chris is coming through JFK at 9 a.m. So there were a number of people that showed up for solidarity with Chris Smalls. Here's the flyer here. Updated welcome home for Chris Smalls. Let's show up in force to welcome our comrade home. And his flight landed at 9 a.m. on the 1st. That was yesterday at Terminal 8. So a number of us, a lot of people were really excited to see that Chris Smalls was coming back home. They did not make it easy for his journey back, from what I understand. I talked about this with the video that came from Medea Benjamin. We're just glad that he made it back here safely. And I want to talk about the people that are the real heroes. Time and time again, I've told you guys that heroes are not politicians. Heroes are the people that are willing to do as like Chris did. He put his life on the line, right? Like he could have lost his life. You guys know that he was beaten by Israeli soldiers. He was choked, and none of the other activists were treated this way. This just goes to show you again the racism that exists in Israel as well. He was not the only American on the ship, but he was the only Black person on that ship. So Chris was willing to put his life at risk here. He made it very clear when he decided to take this journey that he did not want his kids to grow up in this world as it exists today. So he wants to go and fight. And like I told you before, Chris Smalls organized the first, Amazon union. This is at the Staten Island warehouse where he worked. And after he was able to win that unionization with other organizers as well, Chris Smalls was brought on to multiple TV shows. A lot of things were thrown at him. He was offered a lot of things, right? Like Chris Smalls could have just rode into the sunset, could have made a movie, all these types of things, and just sat back and chilled. But he did not do that. Even after he won the unionization at Amazon warehouse, he went across the country to try to help other people unionize as well. He supported other unionizing efforts outside of Amazon. He is an activist true and through. And then after October 7th, he was also involved in the pro-Palestine activism as well. Now, people need to understand when he participated in the pro-Palestine activism, he lost followers, he lost supporters. Deals that may have been offered to him were taken off of the table because people didn't like the fact that he was not supporting Israel. So he goes to show you here that for him, it was not about the clout, it is not about the attention, that he is what I would call a true hero. Now, Apheni, my comrade Apheni, was one of the ones that was there at JFK to welcome him. I want to show you what she said here.
So we're waiting for Chris Smalls to come back home. We're here at JFK. We're all very excited to see him, and we're all very, very proud of him, and we love him very much. So yeah, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm really, really grateful to be here with all these folks.
Why was the trip that he did so important?
Important that we continue to do these freedom flotillas, and that Chris is on this freedom flotillas, because we need to show the importance of solidarity between labor, the Black liberation movement, and the Palestinian liberation movement. Without all three of these movements being combined, without all three of these movements being strong and working in an interconnected way, we will not be free. All of our struggles are interconnected. So Chris is a representation of what it means to stand in solidarity, what it means to risk your body, put your body on the line. Because in this climate, we have Bernie Sanders denying genocide, or we have U.S. senators continuously funding genocide, even though we are seeing the political and the intentional starving of Palestinian children. We know how important it is for us to continue to push the conversation, and for us to show Palestine that we love them, and that we are willing in service of the work to put our bodies on the line, to make sure we can give them the aid that they need. Because what is happening right now is being funded by our tax dollars. U.S. mercenaries are on the fucking ground. It's our fucking responsibility to fucking take care of this problem.
I love what Apheni said there about the intersection of the labor movement with the liberation movement. And that is so important for people to hear, because As people fight for labor, you're fighting for decent wages, you're fighting for benefits, right? Like there has to be that intersection of the people that are fighting for the labor movement also fighting for the liberation movement. And I would make a call on people like Sean Fain from the UAW to also say something about Chris Smalls. He also was against the genocide in Gaza, but a number of people have been very silent since the Honduras trip, and it's very noticeable, right? Like, so not just the labor leaders, but also the politicians. AOC and Bernie Sanders supported Chris Smalls when he won the union efforts against Amazon. They were at the rally congratulating him, and they had speeches that they gave to the crowd. And I find it very interesting that once Chris Smalls was taking this journey to Gaza, they said nothing. After Chris Smalls was captured, they said nothing. Chris Smalls came home, they have said nothing. It's very telling that these politicians are not going to be the ones to save us. They are looking out for their careers and their career interests. Don't forget, Chris Smalls lives in New York City, just like AOC, and she said nothing. And I also want to say something else, too, to give you guys just a heads up. I've also noticed that Zoran Mandami has been very quiet about Chris Smalls' journey. Also, another New Yorker. So that is not a good sign of what could be to come with Zoran. It seems like he's already capitulating in some ways. Now, I want to take you back to the JFK Airport here. You can see the crowd waiting for Chris. Yeah, so it's great. It's always great to see that support. Like people come out and just waiting for him to arrive home. But after what Chris Smalls has been through in Israel, in the prison, it's great to come home to a crowd of support, people that were standing by him. Here's another video here. Chris Smalls is free. From the sea to the river, Palestine will live forever. From the river to the sea, Chris Smalls is free. Yeah, very important. We will not let this story go under the radar because I think it's interesting to me as well that corporate media, the same ones that were congratulating Chris Smalls after the Amazon unionization, have also been very silent about this. Chris Smalls is an American, and they have said nothing. An American was beaten. They said nothing. Now, check this out. I thought this was interesting as well. In New York City, a Teler Store in New York City projects a message of solidarity from screens in its shop window supporting prominent labor organizer Chris Smalls. Smalls, a member of the Honduras Freedom Flotilla, is the only known crew member to have been subjected to brutal assault. So you are going to see they are going to display videos of Chris Smalls and also Apheni from the storefront. Watch this.
My name is Chris Smalls from the United States. If you are seeing this video, we have been intercepted at sea and have been kidnapped by the Israeli occupation forces or forces of the country complicit in Israel's genocide of the Palestinians.
Chris is a prolific organizer, and he was the first person to ever unionize an Amazon warehouse in America. Just tap in and say that Chris Smalls was the only member of the Freedom Flotilla who was choked and beaten by 7 members of the Israeli occupation forces. He is the only person that is being treated this way with this level of force. And I'm going to take it there because this is the reason why we say, as Black people, that Black liberation will benefit everyone. Because all of the racism and the oppression and the dehumanization that other groups are experiencing is all rooted in the destruction of Black people and Blackness. Anytime a Black person does a direct action, anytime a Black person does something that is escalatory, we are automatically at higher risk than everybody else that is participating in that thing because of the color of our skin.
This is exactly why, as well, some Black people in particular may sometimes want to get involved in these actions, but choose not to, because we know that we are going to be the ones that are primarily targeted. We know that we're at a greater risk when we do that. And that's something I think people need to understand. Even when I've gone to protests, you can kind of see, you look around, you can kind of see the police, who they're eyeing. And this is not to say that they don't go after other people. They do, but we are at a greater risk of being targeted when we do participate in protests and activism.
Period. And Chris was treated in ways that Greta Thunberg and Jacob Berger would fucking never be. Oh, yeah. And for all of the politicians and all of the rich motherfuckers who had the power and the privilege to stop this shit, who are just now speaking up, I would like to say formally, fuck you, because all of you are fucking cowards. I pray that you never see another moment of peace, because bitch, you don't deserve it. What Chris and the crew of the Freedom Flotilla are doing, what the many people are doing, what the resistance fighters of Palestine are doing, that is bravery. And you motherfuckers couldn't even smell it if it was right in your fucking face. Fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, isn't it obvious? It's true. They're very silent. They're very quiet. Rokana is talking about acknowledging a Palestine state. I said something to him as well on X, that you said nothing about the Black man, Chris Smalls, who was beaten by Israeli soldiers. They're all showing you who they really are. Again, Chris Smalls is an American. And you see how he is just being ignored by some of the same people that were applauding him when he unionized Amazon. So pay close attention to that, guys. And you got to keep the pressure on the politicians. You got to let them know that they are silent on an issue that's very important. All the people that kneeled in kente cloth after the murder of George Floyd, very silent. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Jim Clyburn, the Congressional Black Caucus, very, very silent, because they put Israel first. But Chris Smalls is back home. I do want to show you the video here when he entered JFK Airport. Yeah, it is amazing. It's amazing. So glad he made it back here safely. I have another video here, a close-up video of Chris here hugging people in the crowd. Yeah, I'm so happy that Chris is back home. We were worried. A number of us were very, very worried about Chris. So it is great that he is back here. Now, I got to give a shout out here because, some people did speak up. Dr. Cornell West was one of the first to say, I stand in deep solidarity with my dear brother, Chris Smalls, one of the most courageous and consistent freedom fighters of his generation. We must do all we can to support him and fight to end this barbaric genocide against precious Palestinians. And there's Dr. West there. He was sharing a picture of himself when he met with Chris Smalls before. So yeah, Jill Stein also, of course, spoke up. So you see who the real activists and the real people who stand in solidarity are. And this woman here brought up a really good point. And I want to sum this up by playing this video here. The fact that Chris Smalls is an American citizen, and the silence from the way that he has been treated. I want to remind everybody the outroar that happened against Brittany Griner when she was imprisoned in Russia for traveling with the CBD oil. Remember that? Remember the outcry that came from Americans that said, release her, we need to get her back, etc. Politicians chimed in. Biden said something about it, etc. But with Chris Smalls, because it was Israel, they were silent. If Chris Smalls had been imprisoned in Russia, this would have been all over corporate media. So you see the bias here. Listen to what she says.
So let me get this straight. You can be a U.S. citizen, a labor hero, unarmed on a peaceful ship full of baby formula and medical supplies, and still get jumped by Israeli soldiers in international waters? And the White House has nothing to say? Well, we're going to talk about it. So let's start with the facts. Chris Smalls, the same guy who took on Amazon and won, he was just assaulted by the Israeli military. He joined the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, a peaceful aid mission carrying food, insulin, diapers, water filters because Gaza is starving. Not figuratively, literally. Babies are dying from malnutrition. Cancer patients are dying without chemo. Pregnant women are delivering next to mass graves. They intercepted the ship 40 miles out in international waters. They cut the comms. They boarded the boat. 7 armed soldiers beat Chris like he was smuggling a nuke. They dragged him across the deck, choked him, kicked him. They left him bruised and bleeding for bringing baby formula. And where's the outrage? Y'all had politicians dancing around in keffiyehs a few months ago, posting flags saying ceasefire now. But let a black man show up for real, with his feet on the ground and his name on a boat. And suddenly the silence is louder than the bombs. Because solidarity only matters to these people when it's aesthetic, when it's hashtags and vibes, not when it's a Freedom Ride 2.0. Not when it's a black organizer getting jumped in broad daylight by a military that we bankroll. Now let's talk about why Chris was even there. Because as of July 2025, Gaza is unrecognizable.
I'll interrupt her here. Gaza has been unrecognizable for over a year, not since July 2025.
40,000 Palestinians dead. 70% of them are women and children. Hospitals gone, schools gone, clean water is just non-existent.
I would also add that it's more than 60,000 people. So I think she's just reporting the numbers from corporate media. And I would also add to the clean water issue that she's bringing up here. They had 95% unclean water prior to October 7th. So she may not know as much about the history, but I still thought her message here was good.
Journalists and aid workers being killed like targets in a video game. In the U.S., sending more weapons, writing more checks, $3.8 billion per year to help carry out a slow-motion genocide. They called the flotilla a provocation, not the siege, not the starvation, not the white phosphorus or the mass graves. The aid was the problem, because nothing threatens apartheid more than compassion that crosses borders. They didn't just beat Chris because he brought supplies. They beat him because he's black, because he showed up, because he crossed the line that they drew in blood. And he refused to flinch. They treat the people of Gaza the same way that this country treats black labor, black rebellion, black defiance, like it's a threat to be eliminated. So say what happened and say it loud. Chris Smalls got jumped by the IDF for trying to feed starving children. And if your justice stops at the border, then it was never justice at all.
It's a really interesting point that she brought up there. I can't tell you how many times I've said on the show how racist Israel is, even against the Ethiopian IDF soldiers who, to Max Blumenthal's point, he said they basically try to prove themselves to to the Israelis to show that they're brown, but they're still a step above the Palestinian people. Like, it's true liberation is only going to come when people can come together and stand in solidarity and fight back against supremacy. Israel is a supremacist state. We have supremacy here in the United States as well. And I think that's the big thing. You have to fight back against supremacy, which is also bankrolled by billionaires, corporations, and supported and adopted by the politicians. Even the ones who mean well continue to support the supremacy because they never go to the extent to hold the true people in power accountable. And that's why I always tell you to ask yourself, who is standing up to power? What Chris Smalls did, what all those activists did on the Hondola, that's challenging power. When Chris Smalls fought back against Jeff Bezos and Amazon, that was challenging power. I would say 99.5% of the politicians in DC aren't actually challenging power. They support it. They give lip service to make you think that they're challenging power, but then they vote in the opposite direction. So that's how we fight back, is by challenging power. So politicians are not heroes. I think everybody is starting to see this more clearly now. We applaud Chris Smalls, and I support what Chris Smalls has done. You have to acknowledge his efforts. This is someone that has fought not just for domestic issues, but also for international issues. And notice how all of the corporate media channels that wanted to applaud him for fighting for the domestic issues are very silent about his fight for the international issues because it involves Israel. If Chris Smalls would have been fighting back against Russia or China, those networks would still be out there supporting him and congratulating him. But because it's Israel, they're silent. Any form of, this supremacy that exists, the networks, the media, the politicians, the billionaires, the corporations, they support it, they defend it, they bankroll it. So the only way that we are going to see significant change in this country is by officially challenging power. Now, there are different ways to go about doing that. One is building dual power systems like mutual aid efforts, which I participate in. I do. Those of us at RBN do. The other way is honestly, and I've been saying this since 2021, is through a general strike, shutting down supply. That is the other way. Voting is still a tool that can be used, but voting is never going to officially challenge power. And you have to know that. I'm glad Chris Smalls is back. It's great to have some good news, and we wish him well. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.